And welcome to the very first episode of this Sales TV mini-series. I'm Alex Abbott, otherwise known as the Bearded Sales Guy, and I'm here with my co-host, Josh Smith, the founder of CRO Connected, the fastest growing private community where revenue leaders actually learn from each other and not just talk strategy, but really improve performance. So this show is all about real talk at the revenue table. So no fluff, no recycled playbooks, just the conversation that leaders should be having. And today's theme is a big one. The new GTM power play, why personal brand belongs at the revenue table. So we're going to unpack how building personal brand isn't just for influencers or founders anymore. It's becoming a strategic lever at the GTM level. From the CRO to every seller and marketer on the team. And yep, this show is brought to you in partnership with CRO Connected. If you're a CRO or revenue leader, not already inside that community, stick around and we'll share how you can get involved later on. So, Josh, it's great to have you with us doing this mini series together. Why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about you and why CRO Connected and what revenue leaders can expect?
Sure. And, excited to be here. And me and Alex were just, I guess, having a bit of a giggle before he hit the detonator go button. He's got the Bearded Sales Guy tag, and I guess that's a big part of his personal brand. So I guess I'm searching for the equivalent for me. And we come up with quite a little one. And by the way, we weren't the first to say this. Louis Fernandez used to start posting anything with CRO with a crocodile animation.
Yeah, right? Seen that.
So we were sort of saying maybe mine should be Josh the Croc. I barely own any normal human footwear. I basically live in Crocs. So
okay.
That seems incredibly fitting.
I think you'll certainly be remembered for that one. Obviously.
Fun, to be honest.
Yeah, Croc being an abbreviation for CRO Connected.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, great play on words.
But yeah, as for CRO, I think you did a better job than me, to be honest, of telling the world there what we do. I guess just to give a backstory of why we existed in the first place. I was a struggling go-to-market leader in a Series A startup out in Berlin, in an industry that was just wildly foreign to me. It was in the gaming space. Got the job by luck, in truth, deeply underqualified to do it. Sold to the founder and CEO in a prior life. Got offered the gig. Went out there and really had a baptism by fire. Investor-backed business. Had never done any of the stuff, around reporting, managed the sales team, marketing team, CS team. Again, first time, for all of them things. So I was just kind of like looking around to say, whose history is my future? There has to be a place where I can go and learn from the cuts and bruises of others. So every day I come home from work, it doesn't look like I've, walked through a kind of field of cactuses. And shock horror back then, nothing existed. What started as a bit of a beer and pizza club with a few industry folks in Berlin, eventually scaled into what we've got now, which is just a really grown up in-person environment for go-to-market leaders in any conceivable industry to come and learn, from other people, so hopefully they don't have to go and get their legs blown off the same way that others already have.
Yeah. I think that's great. There's certainly, to me, feels like there's a gap there that needs filling. And I love having been to one of the summits. Firstly, they're a great experience for revenue leaders, but I think it's is it Tamra that said it's all about iron sharpening iron, and that's really stuck with me.
Yeah. I think we could have a Tamra quote book. He's done quite a few of these really cool things, and I think it was 2 or 3 summits ago we actually printed a couple of them on the floor. But yeah, I mean, iron sharpens iron is probably my favorite.
Yeah. Good. So let's kick things off then. One of the first questions that we've talked about sort of asking ourselves is, why does personal brand even matter to CROs and revenue teams today? And I think you made a really good point.
Yeah, I think like yeah, like my observation at least is like what personal brand is and isn't is really unclear. You know, when we talk about personal brand, in the most cases, people kind of jump straight to tactic. So like LinkedIn, right? My personal brand is me posting on LinkedIn. Right?
Yeah.
Not personal brand. You know, and I think there's like a couple of definitions that I've seen in the world that I think are really good. Like a really simple one, a guy called Alex Hormozy who, you know, operates in a different kind of realm to my CRO audience. At least he's a CEO of a VC company now, but you know, started his kind of career in the gym business, really successful. His portfolio companies do about 200 million in revenue, and like one of his definitions was like personal brand is simply what you're willing to associate with. That's really, really smart and simple. He's got a great way of just operationalizing difficult or complex things.
Yeah.
Like what he sort of said was, in the easiest way to start a personal brand is to just work out what you don't want to associate, right? Because again, it's really difficult to know what to start. But I think like my personal definition of what is a personal brand, I think it's like, what do people think and feel about you when you're not in the room?
Yeah.
My one line definition. And I think that like again, the process can be built the same in terms of like operationalizing it how Alex does. But I think that we can, yeah, we can focus too much on the tactics. I think if we just start from a place of like, what do I want people to think and feel about me? That's a good start. And you could also say that's just reputation.
Yeah.
It's just an old-fashioned way of saying reputation, but I think that's one and the same, right?
Yeah.
Like personal brand is just your reputation to your dream audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're the expert, so I'm curious. Personal brand important. How do you define it?
Well, I think you know, I agree with you in terms of where you start. That's often the biggest hurdle for people that I talk to is you know, when you want to develop your personal brand, where do you want to start? And I typically ask the question, well, what do you want to be known for? What are the 3 to 5 topics that really mean something to you as an individual? And from those topics, how do they align to the organization that you work for? What are the outcomes that you deliver to your customers and your buyers? And then what are the things that you feel are most important to your buyers? And putting yourself into that space and then thinking about the 3 to 5 things that you want to be known for will be a little easier. And then once you've done that, it's then a case of looking at those things through 3 lenses. How authentic do you come across? Because what you don't want is 3 to 5 things that are, I'm the best salesperson in the world, which is often how people look on LinkedIn, because they've designed their profile as a CV. So, how authentic are you? How buyer centric are you? And how memorable are you? Things that we think of in terms of our go-to-market messaging, perhaps not so much the authenticity piece, but I think it should be. And given that one of the biggest challenges that sales people, revenue teams have today is generating conversations with the people they want to do business with, then thinking about LinkedIn as an extension of you as an individual rather than a channel, like a social channel, is a really good place to start. And then design your profile with those things in mind.
I think you just got a really you sparked a thought in my brain. And by the way, I just want to answer the first question before a riff, like why does it matter? I think in a world of AI and technology, personal brand is the only thing that's with you forever, and not only is it something that's going to be useful for you now in the current role that you're in, but this is a thing that you never remove from yourself. Of everything that can be displaced in a world of technology, this is the only thing that can't.
Yeah.
So I think that like that's why this really matters. But when you said that about like authentic, memorable, I think it was biocentric, like you sparked a kind of side thought, and I'm getting really curious with you as yet to get the answer. But like I think people's initial feeling, at least when they're, they understand they want to build a personal brand, they start to deploy, a strategy across a channel, whatever they choose. The initial feeling I get is that people want to become this thing called a thought leader. And it inherently makes people really preachy and tremendous pressure to become an expert. I think like that then removes your ability to be as authentic.
Yeah.
I'm not saying if you're not an expert, be an expert, but I think like there's far more easier ways to actually come across authentic by, not showing you have all the answers. Like there's a really great example. There's a guy called Adam Robinson. He's the CEO of Attention.com. I follow him, basically everything he does on LinkedIn. I just find it fascinating. And like he, is basically building a business live in the public domain, warts and all, showing the good, the bad, the ugly, showing his financials, not being an expert at building a business, but just showing the process.
Yeah.
So authentic, but equally biocentric, equally memorable. Like, and I think like there's things that you can do to remove that initial pressure when you think about, like becoming an authority or thought leader. And my view is don't lean towards that. That's almost like a byproduct of like 5 years, 10 years of work. Give you that title. It shouldn't be the thing that you go to the market trying to achieve.
Yeah. And that's been the starting point now for so many years, that there is so much noise, there's so much insight in the market across every industry, that you're actually not differentiating yourself if all you do is share or create thought leading content. And so, within those 3 to 5 topics that you want to be known for, it's really important to define 1 or 2 that are more personal, more human by nature, perhaps certainly align to your core values and beliefs as an individual, and therefore potentially align to your companies. But more importantly, they're human topics that allow you to engage with other humans that just happen to be your buyers. And from a social perspective, I know we're kind of getting into some tactics here, but when you show people that you care, they start to see you more often than when you're just the trusted advisor, because they can relate to you on topics that are more human. And that's really right there is the magical bit that then it allows you or enables you to be more visible to a much larger percentage of your territory, not just the 3 to 5% that might be in market, or the 20% considering an alternative. Because if there is no trust there or rapport, then they're not going to consider you anyway.
I guess like the difficulty with this though is like industrializing that as a process.
Yeah.
Like I'm curious again, like where have you seen teams be able to industrialize building a personal brand in the most authentic way? Like how do people do that? Because I've got my own opinion, right? Like some tactical things people can do. Like I think that you should have 1 or 2 content days as a team, right, where you bring in cross-functional team members, implementation people, come and talk about like 3 scenarios, like, or come and talk about like past stories. So like, what are the things, or who are the people that have helped us build the beliefs that we have? Like, but it's very narrative orientated. You've got like the present stuff, which is like, what have I done this week? Why does it matter to people? What have I learned from it? What could others learn from it? And then obviously you've got like the futuristic stuff of like, what bets am I hedging down the track that again might be at least interesting for people or useful for my customers. But like my main kind of premise with that is like, you should be doing that as a team, right? Like creatively building days together, cross-functionally across the organization, not just a group of sellers. Like be able to build out really awesome stories, and then you can hopefully choose the ones, or at least deliver them in the way that's most authentic to you. So like, have you seen any like world-class examples of making it a productive process to build personal brand?
Yeah. I mean, all of the ideas that you came up with, yeah, all that you could put them in all of the above. We need to be doing all of those things, but it really starts with leadership, alignment, and strategy, and aligning the teams on this new strategy. And that's sales, that's marketing, that's customer success. The most difficult thing to tackle first is changing the hearts and minds of your leadership team and helping them understand that there's only so much juice that we can squeeze from this orange or lemon.
Yeah.
And so we're doing that every single day, and we're just squeezing harder and harder. And yeah, we're changing tactics slightly, and we're perhaps renewing the strategy. But at the end of the day, you're still trying to search and qualify the 3 to 5% of people that are in market, and everyone in your industry is doing the same. So the first thing to tackle is really helping those leaders in a position of influence within your organization understand that it's really authenticity and human values that are going to connect your teams with your buyers and create new points of differentiation that are more human related rather than value proposition related, because your buyers don't listen to your people until they feel like they know them, like them, and trust them. So accepting that a change needs to happen, and then think about the alignment and how we empower those teams across the operating model to then be more authentic, develop their personal brands, activate and grow their network with purpose with those people that they want to do business with, and start to create content, the ideas you were coming up with, start to create content that makes them sound a little different, not just the trusted advisor that they've always tried to be, but the human being that is worth having a genuine conversation with, because they seem like a nice person, and they don't look like or sound like a sales guy that's going to treat me like a bone, a dog with a bone, and never let go.
Then do you see like many companies, obviously you speak to this subject day in day out with companies, do you see much resistance to like adopting like a almost like a personal brand first strategy? Because like my personal view is like there has to be a biting point, some point in the near future, where if you don't do it, like your chances of success just greatly diminish. Because like when you look at kind of average ages of buyers today, maybe this isn't as relevant, but certainly in the next few years, when like the next generation of younger people become buyers, this is how they've always bought in their personal life.
Yeah.
Lived in influencers.
I think it's relevant today. I think, those people that say, well, it's not quite relevant today, it's going to be relevant in the future with the next generation, have their head in the sand, really. If we just think about how you and I got to know each other, it was through a mutual friend of ours, Mark Sabatini. And, we had a call, we hit it off, but nothing happened. We followed up after we'd seen each other on LinkedIn for some time, and we had a call, and it was a far more productive call. And now doing some great stuff together, but, we didn't know each other, a year ago. So I think, maybe it's because you and I are both Welsh. That was the reason.
It was a discovery for me.
But, we had that conversation and we started building rapport. And I think that's what it's all about. For most people, sellers forget the importance of building rapport. Telling the success story as soon as I can tell the success story, as opposed to, hey, let's get to know each other.
Yeah. Do you also see then some like generational and cultural with building a personal brand? And I say that because like maybe this is just a stupid generalization, right? But like in the UK, I think we've generally been raised to fit in more than fit out. We've got a bit of a stability preference, like, kids were seen, not heard sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like compare it to America, there's far more of this kind of entrepreneurial spirit and gumption and rigor and all that stuff. Like, so do you see like it being harder to do at scale if you're based in a certain place because of the cultural norms you would have potentially developed? And if so, how do you out-train that? And the question's basically the same for generational kind of.
Yeah, I think change is hard for any person, for any organization. And you probably know just as well as I, having led teams that span multiple continents and countries, there's always that pushback, that regional pushback. Oh, that won't work here. As we know, that's kind of human resistance, really. It usually does work there. It's just we'd have to position it differently, or the boundary, might be a little different. One example is when I was running a team covering Saudi Arabia and operating a challenger sales methodology. Oh, you can't build constructive tension with Saudis, It's like, well, you can. It's just the boundary's different, and the technique needs to be a little different. But I think, yeah, it's culturally, it's difficult to change. But if I think about the different teams that might resist, marketing versus sales is desperate to try anything to generate new conversations, new leads. Marketing typically, and I don't want to broad brush marketing, but typically they're more resistant to this kind of stuff because for them it's all about insight and brand, company brand, and less about personal brand. And I have spoken to some marketers that get it, and one even cancelled, kind of literally stopped their email marketing program because it was delivering nothing. They went all in on this, but not every marketer is the same. And I think we have to find that balance between company brand and personal brand, and helping our people develop their personal brand, because buyers buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And I think the real challenge is amplifying our people into our customers more effectively.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really, really solid point. Let's say, and by the way, I don't want to take up too much time asking, but I'm just free kind of consulting out of this. I think you wanted to, do that live and show my LinkedIn stuff. But I was just like wondering again, though, let's say you've gone all in as a company now to acknowledge that this is the right way to behave. Like, it is the first step sitting down and like defining your character as a human. Like, what's the most tangible first step?
Yeah, as a CRO or as an individual, or
I think for both. It'd be interesting to hear the answer to both.
yeah. Well, I think on a corporate, on a company level, if you've got a team, it's agreeing on a new strategy is the first thing. The second step is really upskilling your people. So what are some of the things that we need to change? And quite simply, it's personal brand development. It's engagement and how we engage differently, given that we have LinkedIn as a digital place, or a digital world that has many different places that we can venture into to look for our ideal customers. And engaging differently is quite a big thing. There's the content creation. So what's the content that we need to create that elevates, amplifies our personal brand, both from an insight and a human perspective? And then thinking about those three topics linked to each of your people as levers that they can pull. And one area, one place they can pull them really well and really effectively is LinkedIn. But it doesn't have to just be LinkedIn. And by pulling those three levers harder, then you're growing your influence inside the accounts that you want to do business with. Now, jumping back to a comment you made earlier about industrializing, or I call it operationalizing the approach. some pretty big things need to change as well within an organization, like the reporting. So how are you measuring activity? How are you linking behavior to the outcomes you want to deliver? And in this case, it's about generating more conversations with your target audience. And then how do we approach data? And LinkedIn is incredibly powerful when we start to look at our territories through the lens of those stakeholders that we want to engage with, how active they are or not on LinkedIn. Because, there's no point taking a social first approach with people that simply aren't active on LinkedIn. But it is important to take that relationship social first approach on LinkedIn. From my experience, 3 years worth of benchmark data that we're tracking, that it's important to take that step as a primary step, and then you think about the role of email and the phone and events as part of that.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Like, it's not kind of silo dependence on one thing, it's the culmination of everything that makes the machine work. But like, one of the things there as well you said about like the measurement, my gut feel, zero evidence, again, kind of asking you as the sage on the subject.
Yeah.
I would imagine that the measurements that you take can be a blessing and a curse, right? Because like the immediate, raw, visceral, like understanding of am I doing a good job or not is how many likes, comments do I get around a subset of posts, right? And I guess like that can make you feel good, but it could also make you feel bad and put you off potentially. But to your point, like the actual dream outcome of this is conversations, not just hearts on a picture sort of thing. So like, are there lead indicators that you said like these are the leading indicators that we actually need to care about that will drive us to the conversation being the dream outcome?
Yeah, great question. So firstly, we need to think about the territory and how we are prioritizing our time with our territory. Simple three blocks. Hot priority, warm priority, cold. Right? That it could be that simple. And maybe you've got a territory that's industry based. So you then want to use that to create, a smaller territory at the sales rep level, but then you've got further segmentation within that, which is where you then align with your business development rep, BDR, SDR, or any others on the team that you might be working with. When you've got that focus, you can then deploy your strategy, your social first strategy, with a greater sense of purpose, because then it boils down to really, three things: connecting, commenting, and content creation. But in terms of that measurement piece, because you're now connecting, commenting, and creating content that is specific to your ideal customers, and then based on your level of priority, you're never just creating content for the sake of creating content because it's aligned to your personal brand. You're creating content because it not only aligns to your personal brand, but it's specific to moving the ball forward within a conversation that you're having right now, or to unstick a segment of your pipeline that might be stuck, for example. So you're then more motivated to do that stuff. Then if you're measuring network growth, relevant network growth, am I connecting? Am I growing my network with the people that I want to do business inside the companies that I want to do business on a daily basis? Because if you're not, then you should be. The next one is content creation. So am I creating content frequently enough to be visible in my new connections timeline on a weekly basis? Because I want them to see me popping up in a credible, human, and authentic way. And then am I commenting? I call it social networking, but in the world of LinkedIn, it's commenting. Now that I've got 10, 20, 50, 80% of the people that I want to do business with as part of my network, or certainly the accounts those accounts, because you can't always connect with the primary stakeholders, but I've got a high percentage of my network and now people I want to do business with. They're going to be seeing me more often in a credible way. And so why don't I insert myself into social networking conversations in the same way as if they're in a room at an event? And I just go searching for those rooms. And those rooms might be around topics or a certain post. It might be specifically engaging in a conversation that I can see the stakeholder is having on one of their own posts or a colleague's post. And by dropping into those conversations in a credible, authentic manner, you're just building rapport, like drops, little drops, every other day, every week. So when you then ask for that meeting, they're more likely to say yes.
It's fascinating. Like, I was just kind of like trying to write down all the things you said there, and like my kind of general conception with building a personal brand is it's almost like a kind of inbound strategy in a way. Like, you're trying to bring conversation to you. But what I just heard there was actually probably 80% of building a personal brand is outbound, and like probably 20% is kind of to drive inbound. Although it's kind of outbound to build inbound. I get it, but like most of the stuff that you're actually doing is going out to the market, commenting, connecting, all this stuff, and then the kind of content is the bit that hopefully brings the inbound component.
Yeah. It's what I love about this is it's both.
Yeah.
It's almost like this continuous circle of outbound to create inbound, outbound, inbound. And then the beautiful thing about it is in the middle, you've probably heard this term nearbound.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've heard this term nearbound. So doing business with the people that know you, like you, and trust you the most. You're creating your nearbound for yourself as a result of following this approach consistently. Because like you and I didn't know each other a year ago, I feel like we've got a really good relationship now and could almost call ourselves friends. And that's the power of, LinkedIn and doing what we do and using social media in a way that's sort of more effective and not just a channel.
Then can I just ask one more question then before we, I guess, the exterior will dissect my LinkedIn profile, which I'm fine with, by the way. Are there, just on a really tactical level, any formats that you think are wildly underutilized that just present massive opportunity? Because, like, for example, I see like vlogs, like traditional vlogs that you would consider only appropriate for YouTube, being like a superpower on LinkedIn if you can produce them the right way. Like, but do you see other things as just way more effective and kind of easier barrier to entry?
I mean, there are no silver bullets. There is no easy button with this. I think, it's a bit like investing. It's consistency that really, or saving. It's a bit like consistency really matters. I often hear, well, how the algorithm is affecting, the number of impressions I'm getting. Well, look, let me tell you one thing. You cannot control the algorithm and you'll never understand it because LinkedIn changes it. So just think about the things that you can do as an individual. And when you learn these new skills and you deploy those skills with a much greater sense of purpose consistently, that's when you'll start to see the results.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't doubt for a second that that's the right answer. I guess just with all these things, like, you can look at social media, LinkedIn included within that, as like a construct to say, like, there are scientific ways to try and generate virality. And like, you could build a strategy based on just optimizing for kind of slam dunks and home runs versus consistency and discipline. But I guess like the Mavericks are going to scout them paths to market out, and for the rest of people, it is just about a consistent, disciplined game of doing the right things over and over again for
yeah. And we can, now that we dissect your profile, we can touch on some of those little tactics, those little things that you can be doing.
The lack of consistency for the last six to 8 haven't posted.
Hey Josh, there's no judgment here. It's just simple observations. I encourage you to make some changes, though.
Yeah, good.
No, I think look, there's, you know, when I'm reviewing someone's profile, yes, I'm thinking about a bunch of things. You know, I'm asking myself questions about, you know, what exists or what doesn't exist from both a passive or static social perspective. You know, your digital profile compared with your active social behaviors. So, how often are you commenting? How often are you attempting to insert yourself into conversations in front of those people that you want to build a stronger rapport with, that you perhaps aren't spending time with every week or every month? What content, you know, could you be creating, and does that content appear to align with exactly what, you know, what you're doing? um, and then look at it through the three lenses we spoke about earlier: authenticity, biocentricity, and how memorable that you are, because those are the things that we see from the benchmark study that really matter. All of those things combined actually really matter and influence the conversation rate the most, whether it's a new conversation you're trying to create with someone, or whether it's having another conversation with somebody that you already know, but for whatever reason, they're ghosting you. And this applies to customers as well. So account managers and customer success teams who, you know, they might have a great relationship with someone within their customer account, but the executive keeps failing to show for the QBRs or the monthly meeting. So how can you build a rapport with those harder to reach stakeholders that otherwise don't give you the time of day? Well, they're on social, and 84% of executives use social media to influence B2B purchase decisions. So anyway, that with that in mind, I love the banner. It's very human, very authentic. It's promoting what you do, but you've got people in it, which is what people want to see.
Yeah.
When it's too corporate, it can turn people off. Or if you're just using a standard LinkedIn image, uh, you're not really achieving any one of those three things: improving how memorable you are, how authentic you might be, or how biocentric you are. Great photo, very clear. We can see it's you.
Me 10 years younger, though.
Hey, maybe update it with a picture of your Crocs in there. You've got your name clearly displayed. Yes, it's amazing the number of people that will have an abbreviation in there or something different. Tagline. So if we think about the most important pieces of real estate on your profile, yeah, the banner's important, but the photo and the tagline and the name are the number one pieces of real estate that you really need to think about, because for the most part, driving profile visits is quite hard. Relevant profile visits, it's quite hard. The thing that the thing that encourages people to visit your profile, yes, it's content, yes, it's commenting. The two most valuable activities you can do to drive relevant profile visits. But the first thing people look at before they visit is they see your photo, they see your name, and they see your tagline. So it's really important that you've got a clear photo that resembles you. Your name is obviously there, and you thought about your tagline. So for the most part, people will have their title there. They might have the outcome that they deliver to customers, because 10 years ago, we were all told that that was the thing that we should have there in our tagline. But they're the things that really turn people off. Because, oh, it's a sales executive. Not gonna look at them because they might sell to me. And so really thinking about the tagline as something that's quirky, that can stand out, that will pique someone's curiosity to take a closer look at your profile, because that's really what you want. Because once they look at your profile, if you've then done all of the work on your profile, you're increasing the chances of them seeing you in the light that you want to see them.
Yeah.
and leaving them with the feeling, a good feeling about you.
Yeah. But then when you're talking about that tagline, mine probably seems quite boring in that general equation. Like, what would you do to change it, or how should they think about it slightly differently?
I mean, there's something in GTM nerd, there's potentially something in Crocs and CRO Connected, that abbreviation we spoke about earlier. And the footwear Crocs. So,
Yeah.
that you could take those 3 points, drop them into ChatGPT and say, I want to work on my tagline to make it quirky and pique curiosity. My audience is X, and then see what it spits out.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. I've definitely seen more people do quirky stuff like this lately. I think like Jerry's is a great example. Like I think it was like 4 months ago or 3 months ago, he was the world's biggest man in sales leadership, because he is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, but recently he must have met somebody who's 7 foot, because he's just changed it to the second biggest man. So like, it's cool. Watch that. Even I get curious and I know him. I'm like, I want to speak to him. You know? So I guess this stuff does work.
Yeah, it really does. Because then, the first thing you want, you're trying to increase your visibility with the people you want to do business with, but you're also trying to come across as a genuine, authentic person. If you can pique their curiosity, they start to read your profile. That's where you need to make sure people can contact you.
Yeah.
Where's your email address? Where's your phone number? I mean, you might not want your phone number. It's up to you. Not everybody does. But perhaps including the CRO Connected website and your email address there.
Yeah.
Then, I look at the about section. So, this is your opportunity to help your audience, your people the people that you've never met yet, or even those that have met you, to help them get to know you. Like, I think we found out that we were both Welsh the last time we spoke.
Yeah.
And we've met in person and maybe had half a dozen conversations. But that's a really cool thing that you might want to include in your about section as part of your personal story to help someone get to know you.
Makes sense.
Increase the chances of them wanting to engage with you. And if you do choose to create a personal story, there are some simple formats that you can use to create, an engaging story, even if it's a personal story. But always remember to have a business point. Certainly in your about section, creating a personal story is often a step too far for most people. So, starting with a business point at the beginning, tell your personal story to help someone get to know you, and then finish with a business point. So you've grabbed their attention about something that is relevant to their professional career, but you've then taken time to help them get to know you a little bit. Featured section. So really good use of the featured section here. We can see Tamra interviewing someone on stage at one of the previous summits. When I read your featured section, I definitely think this guy is a trusted advisor and he's here to help CROs, which is great. We'll come back to your activity, but love the fact that you've got 10,500 followers. That carries a degree of credibility with it. And then your experience. So for most people, they have either nothing here or just a short paragraph about the company or perhaps what they do. I think it's really important to tell a little bit about why you're doing what you're doing to help, help your audience understand you a bit more. It's what you do, but why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
You've got license and certifications, which is good. Skills, great that you've got leadership and operations management as the top 2. you can reorder your skills if there are two that are more relevant for people to see. But then you've got 38 skills here, so there's a risk that you come across as a generalist.
Mm-hmm.
So think about, you know, cleaning up the skills. They're probably organically landed there over the years, and if you have a look, you go, oh yeah, I'm an expert in Excel, but is that really relevant for my CRO audience? And so getting that to 10 or less if you can. Recommendations, hugely powerful, right? We put a great deal of effort into ensuring we have client testimonials on our websites, but we often, if we have recommendations, they're often about how great we are at doing our job, usually from colleagues, people that we've worked with, as opposed to customers or ideal customers. And so when we think about authenticity and biocentricity and being memorable, really we want to be thinking about our recommendations and having a strategy for our recommendations. Who are we going to ask? Why are we going to ask them? And what do we want these people to say? So we ask those people that are more relevant based on what we think that they are going to say about us. And another thing is just ensuring that they're quite frequent and up to date. So I think a recommendation older than 6 months is probably getting a bit old. You know, thinking about staying on top of fresh recommendations, and make it easy for those people that you're asking.
Yeah.
You know, always ask over the phone or in person, and then make it easy by saying, well, you know, based on what I know about you and you know about me, would it help if I just put a few words together as the basis of the recommendation? And then they're more likely to actually do it.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Honors and awards, great. And then asking yourself, is there anything else? Because there's quite a few things. There's other sections you can add to your profile that you just haven't thought about yet. So asking yourself, what else is relevant that is a key part of my personal brand that I want my audience to know because it aligns with authenticity, biocentricity, and memorability? What projects am I running in work, outside of work? What volunteering do I do? What fundraising do I do? What books do I like? So really just thinking about completing the picture when it comes to your personal brand and creating opportunities for you to engage with your audience on different levels.
So, but like, for example, that's super interesting, right? I didn't know that you could, or I'm guessing you can, based on what you said, add a section around, like, I don't know, book recommendations. I didn't know you could do that. So is that a possibility, or is that something you post about?
Yeah, well, that's something. So you can't, as far as I'm aware, be specific about book recommendations. But so you could post about that. You could include that in your about section, but you could add things here like within licenses and certifications. Are there any other certifications or qualifications that you've done? So I was doing some mentoring here for an organization called She Loves Data, helping to empower women leaders in data projects. So you can add additional projects that you might be doing. So I'm a huge fan of nutrition and brain health. So I've added that transformational leadership and social selling, and you can also add the people that are involved in that project with you. Volunteering. So these things I think just you know help. Courses, honors, awards, organizations that you might be part of that are, you know, relevant. You know, I've added CRO Connected here. But yeah, if you look at the top here, add profile section, you can then across these 3 areas add additional sections that might be relevant. And often they're forgotten or just not used.
Makes sense. I think, like, for me, honestly, the most important bit I've taken out of all of that, though, is the, like, why do I do what I do? You know, like, I think that's so interesting because, like, from everything I've always kind of done on LinkedIn, it's always like, we help X do X, you know, like
Yeah.
it's really relaying the personal bit in personal brand, speaking from first person rather than third.
Yeah.
Like, about it, I think that's a really interesting shift in terms of like how I at least present the kind of shop window of my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. And we've not even got to the kind of the active part yet in terms of what you're posting and what you're commenting. And I'm conscious of time, so we can wrap things up if you like. But before we do, within this activity section, this basically records your activity on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you posting? What comments are you making? What videos are you creating? What images, articles, and events are you part of? And for me, it rounds off your, like additional variety of content as part of your personal brand, which is really important.
Yeah.
This is really where you're starting to engage. This is really where the outbound is happening, because if you're connecting with people that you want to do business with, and hopefully you've got like a large percentage of these 10,000 followers are CROs, your ideal audience, what content are you creating and how often? So 3 to 6 posts a week is optimal, which is often very difficult for people to do. And so ensuring that within those 3 to 5, that at least 1 or 2 are human. Love the fact that most of yours are human. There's you with Ginny. There's a video there. I think you were in a member's office.
Yeah.
Love that. So I would say just, if you can do more of that, and I know, you've been distracted for personal reasons, but thinking about, well, what are the 1 to 2 posts that I can be doing weekly, and then how do I build from there? Comments. And so humanized content is what gets you seen by a wider number, a larger number of your network, first degree and second degree connections, and some third degree. That's important. We don't have time for that today, but I can always come back to why that is specifically important. The second most valuable activity that teams can do, if conversation creation is their primary objective, and this is what we find from the 3 years worth of data, is commenting. And so, and we see that it's between 5 to 10 comments a day. Relevant comments a day is kind of where you need to be.
And are you seeing the kind of AI capability like produce a worse job of that? Like, is this a thing that people should be doing manually, or using the AI tools that are out there?
So from experience, I think the AI tools, they serve a purpose. These AI tools that are sort of embedded in LinkedIn that offer up a comment whilst you're surfing LinkedIn, I think good if you want to get some volume up. Personally, I don't use them anymore. I've tried them.
Yeah.
Now, what I find to work most effectively is doing it either myself or using ChatGPT or a GPT that I've designed for myself based on my own knowledge, my own approach, my own methodology, and then I take posts or articles or whatever the post is about, and then I drop it into the GPT that I've created, and I give it more context. Posted, who's liking and who's my audience, and then the GPT helps me create a comment that is aligned to that objective, and I can easily spit 5 to 10 relevant comments per day, and they sound like me.
Yeah. Because the reviews in AI is that they go against the kind of 3 core components of this that you've kind of set out, right? Like it's easy to not be authentic or memorable or buyer-centric when you're plugging yourself into an AI tool to spit out comments for you, essentially.
That's the danger. That really is the danger when you're, if you just think about activity volume with this stuff, then the quality drops. So it really is thinking about how you would approach this, how you might plan for a networking conversation ahead of a networking event. You do have to give this some thought. But if you do give it some thought and you're showing up credibly, then you're building a rapport with someone. They're having a nice feeling when they read the comment that you've taken the time to make. They might have a question, might encourage debate. And therefore, when you send them a connection request or you send them a meeting invitation, that they are more likely to accept.
Yeah.
And then look, you've got videos, images, articles, and events. Nice to see today's event is now here. It's part of your permanent digital footprint, but let's do some more. Let's get some more events on there to add another layer of credibility to your profile. But
yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, I was watching an interview Dan Priestley did on the Diary of a CEO, and he kind of said, like, two things. One, could a customer dedicate a whole day to sit and research and learn from the content that you have out there about you in the world? Like, could they dedicate a day if they decided to? Could they fill it? And then obviously the second question is, what would they learn? And like, again, like, all of this stuff to me is making me kind of realize that there's probably just not enough. So yeah, I think it's been an interesting discovery there.
Yeah, I think we are just scratching the surface, and I think this is testament to why it's so difficult, really, for CROs and revenue leaders to really embrace this, because the topic is a complex one, and there's a number of pieces to the puzzle, and there's a number of moving parts. And really, for me, the most exciting opportunity for CROs today is to think about personal brand as a value lever, as a revenue leader at the GTM table, but thinking about how you operationalize this approach, because everybody's got a story to tell as to why a social first approach doesn't work. Oh yeah, social selling, I know what that is. Yeah, no, it didn't work. Well, it means different things to different people, depending on what role you're in and what level you are. And so
I think, I mean, my gut says it's been proved to work, right? There's micro challenger brands becoming global businesses because of this as a tactic. I think B2C are also probably the best use case of how this can work. And if you're willing to kind of implement that as a strategy into B2B, I think it really does, or it will make a difference. So I mean, I'm fully behind you. I think there's probably nothing more important that you could do right now than to work out how to get good at this stuff.
Yeah. And shameless plug, but I'm building an app to help organizations operationalize this approach, initially with an assessment based on 3 years worth of benchmark data to benchmark teams, but then use that to provide tailored learning and a series of AI driven recommendations to help each individual get to the next level aligned to their objectives, which start with a conversation. Nothing really happens without a conversation in terms of pipeline and revenue. So with that, we have a funky QR code to share, don't we?
Well, hopefully people are here to watch it, because I feel like we've gone to church quite a bit there on right?
We did, but do you want me to say a few words about this, or do you?
Coming from a customer, isn't it?
I didn't hear you. Say again.
It's always better coming from a customer, I think.
Yeah, indeed. So look, for anyone that is interested in CRO Connected, revenue leaders that are keen to sharpen their iron, then click on this QR code and find out more about how you can get involved. You know, I'm certainly a huge advocate, and I find the community to be really quite authentic and genuine with people that actually care about, you know, changes that they need to make to improve performance, and incredibly trustworthy as well. You know, just having very open conversations in a great setting.
Yeah.
I felt very comfortable being part of the first summit a little while back.
I think it's a good point to just quickly build on. Like, I think most go-to-market leaders feel isolated. There's few places for you to go internally to ask for help because of the fear of kind of being seen swimming with your pants down. I think like what we're trying to provide is that safe place, right, where we're all willing to be a bit vulnerable at times, you know, and get help, but also give it back too. So I think it's a really good point. Like, this is a safe place for grown-up people to come and talk about the things that matter to them, and equally, you know, how they can help others.
Yeah, indeed. Good stuff. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the first of a mini series. I think we originally planned to do 30 minutes, maybe extend to 45, but we've gone on a little longer.
I had too much coffee this morning.
What shall we talk about the next topic? I don't know if we've confirmed it fully, but the direction in which we want to go.
I think so, and it'd be good to get people's input too, right? Like, I think it's always better to be steered by the listeners. I think like we've talked about a couple, haven't we? We've talked about the kind of well-being component within sales, which you're particularly passionate about, and I think that's an interesting one. We've flirted with some stuff around AI for the future, but yeah, I think it would be more useful for us to get kicked onto the right road, essentially, by people. Like, what do you want to hear about that either isn't already talked about in go to market, or where we could potentially help fill some color either ourselves or with some guests, essentially from the group.
Yeah. So next one, I think we're looking at beginning of June, maybe doing this monthly. So as Josh said, we have a couple of topics we're lining up, but we want to validate that with you guys. If you've got ideas, or there are any topics in particular that you want to address, or you want to come on and talk about, then let us know.
Super duper.
Cool. All right. With that, have a great rest of the week. Have a great weekend.